Dracenea, they're stunning plants. They come in abundant varieties. They are also known as cane plant, dragon plant, corn plant, and happy plant. They give the home a tropical tree-like style to the home. I've been growing many Draceneas for many years now, and these are things I wish I knew about Dracenea, and this will help you grow your Dracenea. If you're noticing that the tips of the leaves or the edges of the leaves are going brown, there could be several reasons causing this. The most common reason is by underwatering a Dracenea. And there's different ways of actually underwatering a Dracenea, and it makes sense that the tips of the leaves or the edges of the leaves will go brown because this is the furthest part of the leaf from the actual main trunk of the plant. So it's more likely that this area will get dry faster compared to, say, the center of the leaf. There's several ways of underwatering a Dracenea, either by not giving it enough water while watering the plant, and also by not watering often enough, so leaving the soil to dry out far too quickly between watering. Also, what's happened, and I found it out myself, is that one day I noticed my Dracenea, the edges of the leaves going brown, and I found out it's because the plant was completely root bound. There was literally no soil left in the pot. So when this occurs, there's not enough soil to actually absorb the water when watering the plant. And the water was just dripping and draining away too fast, not enough time for the Dracenea to actually absorb that water. So I actually had to completely repot my Dracenea, and this helped to actually get rid of those edges and the tips going brown. The other reason is that Draceneas can be very sensitive to heavy metals in tap water. So tap water contains things like chloramate, bromate, and fluoride, and these are metals that actually can end up damaging the leaves, especially the more sensitive area like the tip of the leaves. And if I don't have enough rainwater to collect, I can't be bothered really to use distilled water, because distilled water, it's very hard to store. You can use filtered water if you like, or I just found it easier using this product, which is actually used in aquariums to get rid of the heavy metals in tap water while growing fish. And fish don't like heavy metals in the water. Their skin's quite sensitive, and so it makes sense by using this product to get rid of the heavy metals. It helps with removing the actual heavy chemicals that are sensitive to Draceneas. The other reason is that from over-fertilizing a Dracenea. And over-fertilizing, the most common sign of it is actually the soil becoming like this kind of like crystal granules in the soil, and this is from the actual salts from the fertilizer, and this can actually damage the leaves of a Dracenea. And for my Dracenea, I tend to use a half reduced concentrated liquid fertilizer. These days I use a fertilizer called Foliage Focus, and I found that really helpful with all my household plants. And I'm not sponsored by Focus Foliage. I just happen to like the product and found that my household plants, not just my Dracenea, but my other household plants thriving on it. So I fertilize my Dracenea once every 3 months if I see my Dracenea is growing, so actively producing more leaves or more branches. And this occurs generally for myself more in the warmer weather like spring and summer. And if I'm not seeing my Dracenea growing that much, then I'll fertilize it once every 6 months. So that occurs for myself more during winter and autumn. But if you find that your Dracenea is still growing, whatever the season is, then I would recommend you try and fertilize it once every 3 months and no more than that. Now, the other reason why things can go wrong with a Dracenea is that if you're noticing that the leaves are quite droopy, that's a sure sign that the Dracenea needs watering. And if you're finding that your watering enough and it's still drooping, then make sure that you do check that the plant is not root bound. And with droopy leaves there, often if it droops so much, often it's very hard for the actual leaves to spring back up. So I often find that I'd recommend that if you find that your Dracenea is just drooping, water it straight away. If you're noticing that the actual leaves, you're finding that the tips of the leaves are splitting or the edges of the leaves are splitting, this could be physical damage to the leaf. What I mean by that is that if a Dracenea is in a drafty area, like near windows, air conditioning, heating, or things like doorways there, or a place where there's a lot of active things going on in the room, a lot of people just going by and brushing past it, it can be that the leaves are just moving around too much and it's ending up causing physical damage to the leaves and causing that splitting to occur. If you're finding that your Dracenea, if you feel the actual stem, it feels mushy, it feels soft. The most common reason for that is that Dracenea, it actually can hold a lot of water in its stem. And so if it holds a lot of water in stem and it's being overwatered, too much watering, each time watering Dracenea, the Dracenea is going to suck up that water and it's going to hold it in the stem. And too much, what can happen is actually can damage the stem and make the stem feel mushy. So if that occurs there, I would recommend to move the Dracenea in an area where it's receiving more sunlight, because if the Dracenea is receiving more sunlight, it's going to need more water. So it's going to use up that water faster and less likely for the plant to actually store the water too much in the stem, causing the mushiness. And also the other part is, don't water your Dracenea until the soil is completely dry. This will actually help to avoid overwatering the Dracenea and help avoid the Dracenea sitting in soggy soil or moist soil for far too long. That will certainly help to actually get rid or reduce the bushy stems from occurring. If you're finding that your Dracenea there's actually black marks on the stem, or you're finding that the leaves are actually, they're actually gone brown, yellow, and they're actually just falling off. A lot of times if the stem is actually brown, there's generally two reasons for it. You've got to check if there's actually root rot or there's actually soft rot occurring. Because what happens is that generally the stem or the leaves going brown, the first occurrence is that the plant has been overwatered. By doing too much of that, it either ends up being root rot occurring or actually soft rot occurring. Now, when it comes to knowing or seeing the difference, when it comes to root rot, basically the stems of the root, it feels black, brown, mushy, has a funky smell, and this is because there's fungal disease in it. So root rot tends to be caused by more fungal disease. And if you do see that, you pull out the plant and the roots are like that, definitely cut off all those dead or dying roots and then leave the healthy white roots back. Repot the plant in a more well-draining soil, a soil mixture that contains, my soil mixture contains of 50% potting mix, 50% cacti soil, and some pieces of horticultural charcoal in it. And the horticultural charcoal just helps to clean the water while watering the plant. Also making sure that when watering a Dracenea, that the actual water is not being held in the cover pot, because I grow my Dracenea in an actual nursery pot, but I have grown it in a cover pot as well. And if the cover pot is actually holding too much water, the plant, which is in the nursery pot, is still going to absorb water, and that's a sure way of overwatering a plant. If you're finding that root rot is occurring, now root rot is more caused by bacterial infection compared to fungal disease. And what happens is that with the bacterial disease, you'll see kind of like the stem, especially at the bottom of the stem, where the stem meets the level of the soil, there's kind of like a black ring around it. And that's soft rot. Also, you may notice that different parts of the stem, random parts of the stem is black or brownish. That's also signs of soft rot. And soft rot is caused by bacterial disease, and soft rot, it's extremely hard to actually try and fix soft rot. And soft rot, you got to be careful, because soft rot caused by bacteria, it can actually spread to other household plants. So if you're finding that your plant has this, move it in an area where it's isolated from your other household plants. You can actually try and clean away, if there's only spots of it, try and clean away that area that's actually rotten. Now, and also then after that, apply a rooting hormone, like a powder rooting hormone, just to try and make it like callus up to prevent the spread. If you're finding, however, the soft rot is actually occurring at the bottom of the stem, the very bottom where it's meeting the soil or the other growing medium that you're growing your Dracenea in, because I've had people let me know that they're growing the Dracenea not just in soil. I grow mine sometimes in water, but some people have grown it in sphagnum moss. So whatever medium is, if you're finding that the black area is at the bottom, at the very same level as where it's meeting the growing medium, then unfortunately, well, you can't really just cut the whole plant off. Well, you can. If you cut the whole plant, unfortunately, you're not going to have much of the plant. If that was occurring with my Dracenea, then I would basically try and just propagate the Dracenea and restart again. And by propagating a Dracenea, hopefully that survives. Hopefully the bacteria is not in those cuttings. So if you do that, still isolate your Dracenea cuttings, because at the moment bacterial disease is extremely hard to get rid of. When it comes to things like, if your Dracenea looks quite leggy, it doesn't look bushy at all or lush, and it's just growing really tall but not branching out, Draceneas actually need good pruning. They don't like hard pruning, but they do like pruning. What I mean by hard pruning is that by cutting every single branch of the Dracenea, that's really hard pruning. I would not recommend you do that, because hard pruning a Dracenea can actually kill the Dracenea, because it doesn't have enough energy to actually produce more branches or more leaves on each branch. And also it can actually slow down and stunt the growth of the Dracenea. With Draceneas, you can actually cut it anywhere you like, and if it has enough energy stored in the stem and the roots, branches will actually grow in the area that's cut. What I tend to do is that each Dracenea that I have, this pot here has several Draceneas in it, and each Dracenea has a few branches. I just cut off one branch of each Dracenea. That way I'm not putting the plant under too much stress each time. Also, by doing this, by pruning the plant once a year, once every 6 months, then what happens is that that area that I've cut, branching can occur. Either one branch occurs, 2 branches occur, or 3 branches occur. So this one here, I cut it about 6 months ago, and this area here, this plant actually has enough energy to produce 2 branches. So you can imagine over the time, if I keep on doing this every 6 or 12 months, eventually over the time, my Dracenea is going to look more and more bushy with many, many branches. If you're finding that your Dracenea is only producing 1 branch each time, it basically means it just didn't have enough energy to, or mature enough to actually produce 2 or multiple branches at one go. And also, if when you do prune a Dracenea, don't throw those cuttings away. You can actually propagate it. So once that's done, just remove the bottom leaves and pop it into the same soil that the mother Dracenea was growing in, and then you're going to get a new plant. Otherwise, you can put it into its own pot, and then you're going to have a new Dracenea plant. If you're finding that the leaves on the Dracenea, random patches on the leaves, it doesn't follow any pattern, just random patches of the leaves are going brown and crispy. The most common reason for that is the actual leaf of the Dracenea has been burnt. So Draceneas, they do like a lot of sunlight, they just don't like a lot of direct sunlight. So they like areas where it's a lot of indirect sunlight. And so if you do put it in an area that's receiving direct sunlight, especially afternoon direct sunlight, which is extremely harsh, it can burn the leaves and occurs, and you find that the leaves, random patches are burnt and crispy. Now, unfortunately, you can't reverse any damage in the leaves. So if I did see that on my Dracenea, I would just cut it off. Just like the tips of the leaves going brown, I would just cut the tips of the leaves, that area that's gone brown off. Just making sure that if you do cut the tips of the leaves or the edge of the leaves, try and not go too close to where the healthy growth is, because I found that by cutting the actual brown crispy leaves, if I cut it too close where the new growth is occurring, the healthy area, it actually caused the leaf to actually go further brown and further crispy. By leaving a little gap, it helps to avoid that from occurring.
Draceneas are also prone to the household pests, which includes scales, spider mites, mealy bugs, also aphids, and also fungus gnats. In this case, this Dracenea has been infected, like a massive infestation of mealy bugs. It's quite disgusting. You can see all the white fluff on the leaves, and that's mealy bugs. So I just get a baby wipe and I'll wipe all the leaves. I wipe on the top of the leaf, underneath the leaf. I try to get into all the crevices where the mealy bugs can really hide. This is quite difficult to do because they are pretty sneaky little pests and it's such a nuisance. So what I tend to also do, if I can't reach all the mealy bugs with a baby wipe, I can also use like a hose, bring it outside and hose it down. And in this case here, I got my dad to help me out because I had to film. So my dad was actually spraying all over the leaves, and it was actually a really effective way to actually get rid of the mealy bugs. Now, just be careful. Try not to spray it near any of your other plants, because if you do spray it near your other plants, well, you can actually end up spraying the mealy bugs on the other plants and infecting the other plants. And once again, when using the hose there, want to get into the crevices, underneath the leaves and all over it. And once that's done there, you can see it's looking a lot better. And this Dracenea, this kind of treatment is going to be done once a month until I see all the mealy bugs are actually gone. So I think this Dracenea really appreciated that. You can see that I can't really see any mealy. I can see a few, but not many left. Not like before not like before when there was like massive infestation of mealy bugs. So that's how to get rid of those nasty little pests. If you have scales, then you might have to just keep on using the white, because usually using a hose won't get rid of a scale. There's lots of Draceneas that are variegated, so they have color in the leaves. And if you're noticing your variegated Dracenea is losing its color and the leaves are turning green, that's an issue that the plant is not receiving enough sunlight. And what's happening is the plant is producing more chlorophyll in the leaves to actually absorb the sunlight to produce energy. So if you're noticing this, move your Dracenea to an area where it's receiving more sunlight. Only recently did I find out that Dracenea's flower. I never knew about it before, and I suspect it's more to do with the maturity of the plant. Mine's never actually flowered, so if your Dracenea has flowered and you know some tips on how to get your Dracenea to flower, I'd love to read about it in the comment section down below.
So that's the tips I have for growing a Dracenea. If you have any tips of your own, I'd love to read about in the comment section down below. If you have any questions for me, don't forget to leave it in the comment section down below and I will get back to you. If you did enjoy the content, hit the likes button, help your crazy plant lady out so she can grow more this channel and also create videos to help you grow your plants. If you like this video, why don't you watch this video here where I explain how to take care of a Ficus Lyrata. I'll see you in the next video.